And shift gears over to the association here. We did bring up Steph Curry here earlier, and he has 11 games now with 30-plus points in a row. And I believe
greatest ever.
That is a record
Better than LeBron.
In the NBA. During that stretch, he has 72 3-points made over that 11-game span. Wyatt, you are our NBA guy here, so let's kick it to you first here. Is Steph Curry the greatest scorer ever in the NBA?
Greatest scorer ever? No. I don't think he's the greatest scorer ever. I think he's the greatest shooter ever. The greatest sharpshooter ever. As for scoring, slashing, getting to the basket, no. I think that's LeBron 100% going to the basket and scoring. And maybe, you could toss a name out there, Trevor Bauer. I think he was, no, I'm just kidding. No, but I think he's the greatest. No, I think he's the greatest shooter of all time. I don't think he's the greatest scorer of all time. I think he's up there. I think he should be in that conversation. Absolutely, because of everything that he's done over his career. He has a layup package that is one of the top point guards in the league. He has the greatest shooting package of all time, and that really can't even be argued in any way. He's just an incredible shooter. So I don't think scoring necessarily, no, but as for shooting, yes, I think so.
So, Wyatt, let me ask you this question. Since Steph Curry is the greatest shooter of all time, how does that not by default make him the greatest scorer of all time? Just because if you're shooting 80% and you're shooting 20-plus shots a game, I mean, you're bound to score 30, 40 points every game, night in and night out. So that, I think that makes you the greatest scorer.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what I said. I think he definitely belongs in that conversation. But whenever you look at scoring, it's more than just shooting three-pointers and mid-range and being a good underneath the basket. To be one of the top scorers, you've got to be great from everywhere in those marks. And when I think of a couple people here, I think of LeBron James, I think of Michael Jordan, absolutely, two of those guys. I think of Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant was one of the greatest scorers of all time. He could shoot from anywhere on the court at any time. Whereas Steph Curry is the greatest, probably, definitely three-point shooter of all time, and probably most likely the greatest mid-range shooter of all time. If not the greatest, then easily top three. And I think he's top 5 scorer all time. But he just doesn't have the big body that per se, LeBron or that per se Jordan had, where he had that big frame that he could drive inside on guys and put it up off the glass. Or, I mean, I don't even know if Curry can still dunk. He's dunked maybe, and I'm not saying dunking is what makes you a great scorer, but he's just not a slasher. He's not the guy that's going to drive to the basket and, jam it home for you or put it up off the glass. He's the guy that's going to catch and shoot and hit it every single time, and if not every single time, then every other time.
So, Combs, there's some comments flooding in here, and basically they are saying that this does not make Steph Curry the greatest scorer. It just makes him the greatest volume shooter and volume scorer, much like Kobe Bryant. So, in your eyes, Combs, is Steph Curry the greatest scorer of all time?
So to say that he's the greatest volume shooter, Tori, I get what you're saying, because I agree with you. I don't think he's the greatest shooter of all time. I don't think he's the greatest scorer of all time.
Who's the greatest shooter of all time?
Reggie Miller.
Well, I mean, what are you going by? Are you going by percentage-wise?
I'm going by who
Steph
do you
Curry's
think
third all-time shooting percentage in a career.
Who is the best shooter from mid-range and out in your opinion all time? Or we'll even just go three-pointer, because I think it's him and Ray Allen.
It's either Ray Allen or Reggie.
I mean, you could go Ray Allen. I mean, you could go you could probably even look at, I'd have to look up the numbers, but you could probably even talk about Robert Horry. Robert Horry was a great three-point shooter. Steph's dad was
Del Curry
a great
was the
three-point
sixth
shooter.
man. Okay,
but
Steph Curry is a great
three-point
three-point shooter, but it doesn't make him the greatest. Del Curry is probably the greatest sixth man of all time.
To say that he did it by volume, like Tori is saying, that would weigh down his shooting percentage. So that's not true, because he's got the third best true shooting percentage of all time to Steph Curry.
Who has the best?
But do you know DeAndre Jordan?
Really?
DeAndre Jordan has a 65% field goal percentage.
Well, that's because he literally cannot shoot outside of anywhere. He just dunks it.
Second is Cedric Maxwell. You know who's fourth? Tyson Chandler.
So all bigs that are underneath the basket just dunking it home, they can't shoot from anywhere else.
Yeah. Those are kind of skewed numbers. Like we need like a foot radius, like outside of 12 footers or
that's
something.
That's like saying that Shaq is the greatest free throw shooter of all time because he made more free throws than anybody else in NBA history. He made more free throws because everybody knew he sucked at it, and they continued to foul him over and over and over again and put him at the line.
You know who has the best 3-point percentage in NBA history?
I would say Ray Allen or Reggie Miller.
Probably Ray Allen.
Steve Kerr.
I can believe it. Steve Kerr was an incredible shooter.
I mean, so like, he's not the best shooter of all time because the numbers would tell you he's not. He's not the best scorer of all time because the numbers would tell you he's not. So I don't know what to tell you. I mean, does he get incredible shot after incredible? Yeah, he does. I mean, the guy, he's on another guy, just like Shane Bieber, who's on an incredible run. But he's not, like, everybody wants to, because we're prisoners of the moment.
We are.
We're prisoners of what's going on right now. Right now, yes. Right now, he's the best shooter in the NBA. Right now. But of all time, no, he's not.
Absolutely. Especially,
okay,
I mean, well, not even prisoners of the moment. He's been doing this for a long time.
Because you're like 12 years old, so you haven't seen anybody else shoot other than Steph Curry.
I absolutely have. I have watched a ton of game film. I promise. I would not want to speak on a sports show if I hadn't seen them playing. And I can tell you,
with your last two segments, you shouldn't be talking on a sports show, Mr. Shane, Justin, Harry Bieber.
So let's go ahead and complete this conversation before we head to our next segment, Shop Talk. So if you guys want to talk about anything, let us know in the comments, and we will bring it up here on the last half of the show here. With this recent run here, why should we put Steph Curry in the MVP race here?
Yeah, I mean, and I think he's kind of been there all year as we went along, but I don't think really anybody's got near Jokic this year. Jokic is playing out of his mind. He's averaging like 8.6 assists, and he's a center. He's a center. He's a 5 averaging 8.6 assists. That is incredible. You know, if you look at his stats next to Shaq's MVP year where he was averaging 29, Jokic is within 0.5 of every single stat, either over or under, except for assists. He's over by like 6 on assists because Shaq didn't have the amount of assists that he did. But, I mean, Jokic is playing out of his mind. Embiid is playing out of his mind. I think Embiid is going to get barred from it because he has struggled with injuries all year, and I think that LeBron's going to fall into the same category. But absolutely Steph Curry deserves to be up there because if you take Steph Curry off of this Warriors team, I don't think they get 40 wins. It's just that simple. He is that team because Kelly Oubre is not going to carry him. Klay Thompson's not going to run out there with his torn ACL and carry him. Right. So Steve Kerr's not going to come back and carry him. And so there's nobody out there that would be able to. Draymond Green's not going to do it either. So without Steph Curry on this team, they're a 40-win team. And we saw it last year, too. They didn't win any games hardly at all. And that's how they ended up with James Wiseman. So, I mean, it is what it is. So I think that he absolutely deserves to be in that conversation for sure.
Yeah, I don't think he deserves to be in the conversation off of this 12-game stretch that like he has. But one person that we need to definitely speak about the MVP race is the Greek Freak. Me and you kind of spoke down on him like after signing that big deal, and then Colby's like, no guys, his points are still on point here, and he's averaging just under 29 points a game here, and the Greek Freak is what makes that Bucks team go. So, I mean,
if you're going to talk about MVP race and does Curry belong there, sure. If you're talking about like in the top 5, does he get invited to the award ceremony? Sure. But I mean, Wyatt talked about Jokic. You talked about the Greek Freak. Everybody's forgetting about Joel Embiid.
Yeah.
I mean, so there's your top
Man Hour
3,
Nation.
and then I'd probably
Thank you for checking
Curry
out that
4.
clip. If you're interested in watching the full show, the link is in the description. Click on it, hit that like button, share it with a couple friends, and as always, Man Hour Nation, rise up.